Okay, guys. Well, now we have Cognitive Foundations, Chapter 3. This is where we're going to be talking about Piaget's theory and Piaget's theory of cognitive development. So, Piaget believed that children of different ages will think differently, as we probably all already know that, but believe that changes in cognitive development proceed in distinct stages. Each person's cognitive abilities are organized into one coherent mental structure. His approach is known as the cognitive developmental approach. The driving force behind development from one stage to the next is maturation. So, maturation Piaget portrayed as an active process. Children will seek out information and stimulation in the environment that matches the maturity of their thinking. That's just like when you're growing up, you like certain things at certain times, and then things change and you like something else. Piaget talks about schemas. Schemas are where we basically connect things together, like, for instance, the idea of fruits and vegetables and cars and things like that into one mental framework. For infants, it's based on sensory and motor processes. After infancy, it's more or less symbolic and representational. This is also the time period when he talks about assimilation and accommodation. It usually takes place together in a varying degree. Basically, where we have to adjust our schemas based on new information coming in. So we either are adjusting the existing schema, or how can I put this? We end up putting in, like, for instance, the idea of cars. Back in the day, cars ran on gas and oil. Now we have different types of cars. We have hybrid cars. We have cars that are solar. So we have to change that idea of cars and adjust it for these new types of cars. Now, during this time, one of the things you need to understand is there was Piaget has stages of cognitive development in childhood and adolescence. For instance, the stages are sensory motor, where you see from ages birth on to 2 years of age, pre-operational, ages 2 to 7, concrete operations, ages 7 to 11, and formal operations from 11 or 15, give or take, to start, up to age 20. Now, one of the things that you'll see in your text is that there are many limitations of Piaget's theory. For instance, the stage of formal operation has been the most critiqued here. And that falls into two categories. There's individual differences in the attainment of formal operations. Some people don't even get there. And there's also a cultural basis of adolescent cognitive development. So again, based on culture, and as you can see in your text, this is a cultural approach. Things are different based on what culture you're coming from. Now, the individual differences, how can I put this? There's a great range of individual differences that exist in the extent in which people use formal operations. So even in emerging adulthood, and beyond, a large proportion of people use formal operations either inconsistently or not at all. Adolescents who have had courses in math and science tend to exhibit more formal operational thought. Concrete operations are sufficient for most daily tasks and problems, so most people can get away with not using formal operation or formal operational thought. Post-formal thinking involves adapting logical thinking to the practical constraints of real-life situations. So putting ourselves in situations that need more logic thinking. Cognitive development in the early 20s is is distinguished from adolescent development by a greater recognition of it and incorporation of practical limitations to logical thinking. Now, there are other approaches in this chapter, one of which is the information processing approach. It views cognitive change as continuous, gradually and steady. It focuses on the thinking processes that exist at all ages. The original model for this approach was the computer. So the computer analogy was to try to break down human thinking into separate capacities of attention, processing, and memory. And one of the things you need to know here is there are there are theorists that have critiqued this approach also, and we'll get into that as we go along. Processing information, for instance, speed. Adolescents are faster than children at processing information.